You're with Julian on the Brown Note and a review of the new album by Caribou called Honey, which is presenting the world with a new and highly problematic and challenging paradigm. So Dan Snaith, aka Caribou, aka Daphne, is in a similar place to Fortet, I feel. He is one of the most preeminent electronic musicians of the last 20 years, but particularly since the album Swim in 2010, Our Love, which was a huge breakthrough, with I Can't Do Without You on it in 2014, and Suddenly in 2020, he made 3 back-to-back very strong electronic albums that were very prominent, at the same time releasing as Daphne more club-based music, in a similar way to Nicholas Jar releasing music as Against All Logic, and releasing those fantastic 2 albums as Against All Logic, which is a lot less refined and clubbier than the music he was doing as Nicholas Jar. It's been the same kind of journey for Dan Snaith as Caribou, with the Daphne stuff being the more banging clubby music and the more introspective songwritery music being as Caribou. And I've loved those albums. This one though presents an entirely new paradigm that shatters that gap, but mainly shatters it by offering a totally new version of who Caribou are. And this is the deal. He uses AI for the vocals. And that has been, I think, the latent impacts on this album will be an atom bomb going off in music that no one has really come to terms with yet. What does that mean? So much of the vocals on this album are a very attractive female voice, but it's his voice run through AI. And what does that mean when you can change your voice to be representative of someone you aren't, such as a woman with a really attractive voice? And those are such interesting paradigms to grasp with. I won't go through the tracks so much. Just a brief run over. And it's his 11th studio album, just as Caribou, not including the Daphne ones. Break My Heart is a great opener, and it shows an album that is a lot clubbier than the normal Caribou fare. And it's got like 2-step and blissy vocals, very urgent, very upright on the percussion, and some sort of wobbly UK garage bass going on. It's very good. A lot of this album is very Pink Pantherous. Herself, she's made music which is very sort of meta in its relationship with music that's been made in the past. Very short. A lot of these tracks are very short as well. The highlight for me was Volume, which is using the sample from Pump Up the Volume is magnificent, and a great vocal sample as well. Come Find Me was probably the closest to I Can't Do Without You. Got that sort of MDMA wooziness about it, and sexuality of the vocals, and that sort of build from Can't Do Without You. Track 8 Over Now is him using his own voice, which in this context is jarring, moving from those female voices to his own voice. And the Campfire track is very, very interesting as well, which I'll get to in a second. Overall, I'll give the album a 7 out of 10. I don't think enough of the tracks are as solid as his recent Cherry album, as Daphne, as far as club-based music goes, and not as introspectively interesting. They do occupy the same space quite a lot, and they're like sketches and vignettes of different styles of soft club music, I guess. So about the whole use of AI as using AI in vocals, well, I thought the Pitchfork review of this album was very telling, very ironic. So he can pretend to be a woman for the entire album. He pretended to be a black man for 4 seconds and they went nuts. So how does that work? How can he pretend to be a woman for the whole album when he isn't a woman, and we've got this whole thing on how dare non-trans actors play trans roles, etc. And no one has massive problem with that, but him pretending to be a black man on the track Campfire for 4 seconds, and they brought it up as this, oh dear, that's problematic. What's the difference here? What am I missing? We don't know that the chicks that the AI are presenting are white chicks, but even if they were white chicks, is that absolving of anything? So I think this is a totally valid artistic expression. Can you imagine? And like the first port of call here is to say, what about female vocalists having work taken off of them, etc.? The cruel heart of it is, art is sacrosanct. Art doesn't owe you a living. And I completely get the way that the American film industry and TV industry works, and I'm fully union myself, pro-union, and I get that they're, when they've got work industries, that they defend the rights of people who are writers with strikes, and they defend actors, and they make the photographers and the producers and the directors be members of guilds, and you can't work on films unless you are. But it can't stop someone coming along with an iPhone and with a load of amateur mates and making a film. There has to be a disconnect that allows full artistic freedom. And I've put posts on, maybe on the other channel, about equality is not saying only a trans woman can play a trans role. That will lead to trans women only getting trans roles, as we found out with Hunter Schafer complaining about that literally happening. Equality is that a trans woman can get any role, that they don't have to have a role written for a trans person. That's equality. It's not saying only a disabled person can play a disabled person. It's saying a disabled person could play any role. Maybe the character's initial writing wasn't as a disabled person. It doesn't matter that the actor is disabled, and so on. That's my version of equality. So in this instance, we've got the idea that a half a dozen female vocalists out of work because Dan Snaith has moved his voice into this realm. And I don't think that's a good enough reason to have a problem with it. This is a genuine artistic project. Can you imagine being a virtuoso on an acoustic guitar and complaining about the electric guitar being made? Or a virtuoso on the piano and complaining about synthesizers being made? Or arpeggiators that play random notes or chords very rapidly to make it sound like you're great on a keyboard? Those are all valid things to have happened. Art will always progress. And this is at the vanguard of it. So it is a completely valid use of this technology. And it will continue to cause problems. But probably the least interesting Caribou album, still perfectly fine all the way through. 7 out of 10 for Caribou and Honey.